Okay, so we talked about current account deficits. So here's the opposite: current account surpluses. Funnily enough, I'm going to say pretty much the same in reverse. So, and this one's going to be much shorter. So we're talking about countries historically like China, although it has a lower trade surplus, current account surplus than it did before. So by and large, what that means is that if you have a current account surplus, you have a financial capital account deficit, which means essentially that China is earning large amounts of foreign currency, which it's then investing into US and UK bonds, property, assets, and so on and so forth. So, what you might think, well, what's not to like? So, I mean, in many ways, having a large current account surplus is clearly and obviously beneficial, which is that, as we said, for the current account, AD is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. If you've got lots of exports, then that increases aggregate demand, that creates jobs, creates growth. If you look back to things like EPI, a lot of countries like South Korea, economies like Taiwan and Hong Kong, they have grown through running large current account surpluses. Selling things to the rest of the world. It's generating lots of demand. It also means obviously that your exporters are making lots of profits, which then allows to become more dynamically efficient. So you think about companies like Huawei. In many ways, those are directly clear and obvious benefits of having a current account surplus. We also said that there is a financial account deficit, which deficit sounds bad. What that means is that the currency that's being earned by China is being invested abroad. So China has large holdings of bonds from abroad. It lends to the US government. Chinese investors lend, not the Chinese government, Chinese investors lend to the US government. They earn income from those bonds. Or, we can buy shares in foreign companies. Pizza Express, for example, is entirely Chinese owned, 100%. And Chinese investors have shares of UK banks and so on. That earns dividends that go back to China, further reinforcing its current account. Or property. So a lot of the big buildings in London, they're owned by Chinese investors who generate rent from those things. And that sounds pretty good, and it probably is. If you want to think of the poster child for this, it's Norway. Norway has earned huge quantities of income from its oil and gas sales. But what the Norwegian and in Norway, the oil and gas are owned by a company called Statoil, which is state-run, and essentially, therefore, the Norwegian government gets all the money, and it's used it to buy shares in companies all around the world. The Norwegian government owns 1.5% of global corporations, simply by using the income it's generated from its current account surplus to buy assets abroad. So is it all good? Well, kind of. Not necessarily. Obviously, there is an inflation risk. So it's kind of the reverse. Aggregate demand rising, risk of demand pull inflation, so on and so forth. There's the reverse of that, opportunity cost. Sorry, there's the reverse of the PPF point, which is that essentially countries with current account surpluses are using their resources to make things for consumers in other countries. You are consuming inside your production possibility frontier because you're sending those goods and services to Western to consumers in the UK, to me. And my iPhone has been made for me by somebody from abroad, which we've kind of paid for by selling UK companies or something. Maybe that's going to come home to bite us in the long term, but in the short term we have higher living standards, and therefore countries that are using their resources to make goods for foreign consumers, in the short term they have lower living standards because those resources are being elsewhere. If you go back to kind of Trump, we can see that countries with large trade surpluses, potentially, they face political difficulties. So the risk of having a very large trade surplus is what it can do is lead to trade tensions. It can lead to rising protectionism, damaging trade war that kind of slows down economic growth and damages everybody. and therefore having a huge current account surplus, might not be advisable, especially if somebody's going to come along and accuse you of currency manipulation. So, I mean, the kind of points that we made for the current account deficit, it depends. It remains true here. So really, it's just the same story, but in reverse.